I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to introduce you to Shelley Smith, who is the founder and CEO of Premier Rapport Inc. Thank you so much for joining us today, Shelley.
I'm thrilled and honored to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm very eager to delve deep into your career journey and hoping you can give us about a 90-second overview of what it is that you do and why you got into it.
Well, thank you so much. I have definitely been on a journey for a few decades, but I landed about 15 years ago in my own business. It is a business consulting firm that is focused on all things workplace culture. So, inside of that, I describe culture as how we do what we do when we work together. And so that encompasses a variety of things from top to bottom, from mission, vision, values, anything that is strategically focused, leadership development, executive coaching, and so much more. I use a lot of different kinds of tools. I have my own certifications and method of madness that I've used. And I got into it from actually being I was getting a little bored and a little bit lost. I had been in the hotel business for a few decades, and I decided that I wanted to get out of the hospitality industry. And I had a discussion with a franchise broker, and a few things were pitched to me, and all of them were around executive coaching. Now, this goes back almost 2 decades. Keep in mind, and that was when if you had a coach, something was wrong. Versus now, what do you mean you don't have a coach? So, fast forward in that. So I remember going through that discussion, and everything was pitched to me was around executive coaching, peer reviews, strategic focus. And I remember saying, people make money at that. And lo and behold, everything that was described to me, I fell in love with. I did purchase a franchise. I sold it a year later, and to have what you have today. But I realized through that discussion, everything I'd always done was always around workplace culture. It was always around the human connection. It was always around the human element of getting things done. Now, everybody's talking about culture, and I'm like, I've been talking about it and doing it and living it and morphing it for years. So that's a quick little something about me.
Okay, that's awesome. So, and I'm really curious to hear because it sounds like you've got your own systems and processes in place. What makes you unique in the way that you're helping others create this kind of cultural experience in their daily human reactions?
Sure. Great question. Fair question. I always laugh and say my education is that of life. I've been there. I've done that. I've gone out in the ship in the sea and the rocky, the hurricanes, and I've made it back to shore. So my methods that I've created over time, I realized that every time I would come into a team, regardless of what the role was, regardless of what the level, that I always started with an analysis. And then I realized that I started to move into a curation and a creation period. And then I realized that I was always talking about boundaries and what right look like, and the notion of what does it look like, feel like, sound like. And so through those processes, I actually documented what I'd done all these years. Now, granted, I've been working since I was 11. I had young exposure from a family owned business back in southern Indiana, a sell barn, a flea market, and a restaurant, flipping burgers. But I did start managing people in a different restaurant when I was 16. So I've had a lot of exposure through that, and again realizing. And then I got into the hotel business with Marriott and was in that with them for a couple of decades, franchise as well. And then now, you see what I have today. So I've documented what I've done. I've learned what's worked, what's not worked, and pride myself of being ahead of the curve. And so the differentiation is they're my processes. The differentiation is when I create internal universities for organizations, they're not off the shelf. They are customized to meet them where they are with their mission, their visions, their value, their culture. And if they're not sure what that is, I help them define it, measure it, and get it on track. So most of my clients have been with me for almost the entire time. And then quite a few have been with me for at least 5 years or more because it's a continued, journey. So I become a part of the team and the process, which is very unique in the consulting world. A lot of it is off the shelf. A lot of it is canned, and a lot of it is either I can audit, but I can't help you do it, or I can help you roll it out, but I really can't help you define it. So that brings a little bit of uniqueness.
And I can relate too to the how the cookie cutter approach doesn't work as a financial professional. We all everybody's got their plan, their program, their how they invest regardless.
Yeah.
And we definitely know there's never one size fits all and everybody's circumstances are different. So that is very unique. And the fact that you have clients working with you for that extended period of time, and I'm imagining that's because of the evolution of the team, new team members coming and going, all of those things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And just continue to fine tune it because, a culture doesn't happen or shift overnight. First of all, it's built every day. And so you have to be deliberate. And so when it's really gotten off course, didn't get off course overnight, and it takes a bit to kind of get it back. And the average of anything that you read, regardless of size of a company, is 3 to 5 years to really shift and transform a culture.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting to know.
Yeah.
So, and I know you were at the forefront of the coaching career because you were doing it before it was a common term, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But tell me, where do you see the industry going over the next 5 to 10 years, and how are you staying on top of that?
That's a great question as well. So, all things AI, and AI is a lot of things to different industries. It's above and beyond the automation, it's above and beyond the artificial intelligence. And I do believe wholeheartedly that we must marry the human element and the connection because we're always going to need that. But why would we not want to innovate and to do things better, quicker, faster? And so, with that, even the coaching world, I'm finding digital coaches, which I find highly fascinating. I don't want to jump into that pool, but I have seen quite a few out there. I think that you will find that coaching trend may start to evolve even more, and I think you'll see it as soon as the next 5 years, more of that. I've already seen some versions of it that you literally don't know that you're not talking to a human being, so it's pretty wild. But with that being said, I come back to the customization. Remember, everything around the automation thus far is being taught what we know. It hasn't moved into that two-way communication just yet, but I'm sure it's out there. So I see that becoming a trend from a coaching perspective is how are you going to remain unique? And again, for me, I pride myself on the customization, but I can also still help people move fast. So just because everything is not automated doesn't mean that you can't have automations in order to help you with efficiencies, but you do still need the tweak and customization regardless of industry, size of team, or human being.
Okay, got it. And I know one of the things that you shared with me in your input form was that the world of work shouldn't be so hard. Can you say a little bit more about that and how we humans tend to overcomplicate most everything?
We certainly do. We are complicated and we overcomplicate everything. Part of it is because our behavioral hardwirings are so vastly different. Some of us really require a lot of analytics, and some of us want to talk it out. Some of us want to think through it. Some of us are willing to take risks. Some of us are, risk mitigators. Some of us love independence. Some of us love collaboration. So as you get into each of those varying degrees of that, it requires again the customization piece. But if you go back to the core of I think that we overcomplicate it and therefore it is complicated. And I believe again that we need to lean into one another as human beings to continue to be well, and I mean well in all of our domains in order to get through this world of work. And I do think that there can be joy in that. I do think there can be shorter, what we perceive to be work days. And I do think through efficient, effective automation that doesn't eliminate everything we're doing, it just helps us enjoy this thing called life a little bit more. We have to do things in such a manual way. And I do think that we need to teach, train earlier, sooner, better, faster for people who are doing things that will be automated. But I do think that it can be simplified, and I do think it can be enjoyed. My latest book that will come out sometime this year is called Thirsty, and it's all about the dehydration that we have in the workforce right now. I mean, we are all just looking for something. We're like wanting more, and I call it, it's like being thirsty but dehydrated around that because we've complicated. I think we can bring joy back into our lives.
Okay, awesome. And when did you say you anticipate that being published?
It was originally going to be March 3rd, but I'm yet revising it again, so it might get pushed back a little bit. But I hope no later by the middle of the year.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna put summer on there, so I'll be looking for that. That
All
sounds
right.
interesting. Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna shift gears here just a little bit. I'd love to hear what your biggest challenge is that you have faced this point in your life, whether it's a personal experience or a business experience, and
Mhm.
how that has actually changed the way or shaped the way you do business today.
Well, I would say from a personal perspective, the first big shift was when I started having kids. I've got three kids. They're all adults of varying ages now, but that very first shift was the kids and how you have to become, in my words, you have to become more efficient and effective in life, balancing everything because I was, remained a working mother, throughout and career driven. So that was one personal shift that created more automation, if you will, for me. Second shift was, and it's now 20 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with MS. And so that became another huge shift. Still, the kids were still young. I was still working. And so that shifted for all kinds of reasons and responsibilities. So those two personal shifts allowed me to also shift as a whole human being in different ways, from priorities to effectiveness to efficiencies to understanding what do I need to do in order to keep the lights on, the roof on, the food on, those sorts of perspectives. And then in the world of work, and I'm going to go post 2020, March of 2020 especially,
Okay.
all things COVID, that speed of which everything in work changed, our world changed, but definitely the work dynamics changed. And we're not going back, and we shouldn't go back. And I think that speed is just going, going, going. And so for me, I'm always trying to run ahead of what are people saying, what are they worried about, and what is a better way to get ahead of that. I've always been an early adopter. I'm not one to wait and see. And so those have been two personal shifts that shifted me as a human being. And then professionally, like for example, I'll go back to the coaching and the workplace culture. Prior to 2020, I would have people that really understood what workplace culture was and what it meant and the impact that it had on profit come to me automatically. They got it. But there was also a large group of people that I would have to convince in their minds it was just a nice to have. I'm like, you have it, whether you want to call it out or not. When there's two people together, there's a dynamic and culture happening. Post March of 2020, I would really say into the latter of 2020, people no longer say, oh, that's a nice to have. All of a sudden, they're like, oh my gosh, this was impacting us all along. And now what do we do now that we're all virtual? Now what do we do now that we're trying to do return to work? And so now they recognize it. So those were the shifts that I would say. And I think that's an ongoing chase to what's to come. And the biggest fear point, if you will, to not be obsolete and to be on the early adopter, and for me, the creator side of things, that people are coming to me for the resources and the answers and the possibilities instead of me having to read about it.
And I love that. The answers are always in the possibilities. That
Yes.
is awesome. Yeah. So Are you, tell me a little bit about what you're experiencing right now with people being asked to go back into the workplace. And without getting into politics, we know that just
Sure.
recently people were
Yeah,
required
well,
to join.
I mean, literally today, I was just on a call with SHRM, the Society of Human Resources Management National, and there was 35,000 people on there, and they just kicked the invite out today, and I was glad I was on it, talking about all things executive order and DEI and all of those shifts. So you literally have the right now reactions that are happening. But the return to work, we're seeing that go up and down. Um, as a whole, employees don't want it as a whole. There
Mhm.
are some that feel like there's certainly value in it and they're not resisting it and they're coming back and they're leaning in. And there are still quite a few that are choosing to not come back, take the opt out, and to try to find something else. But they're also finding I would say, the last 12 months, there's far less 100% remote than there were. It was the majority 100% remote, but now that's not the case anymore. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But there's a lot of difficulties that are happening through back and forth with the transition,
Right.
and added to a new administration as well, which you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's all fascinating to me. All right, here's another personal question for you. If you could have lunch with one person, living or deceased, who would it be and why?
I mean, Martin Luther King always comes to mind for me.
Mm.
Fascinating mind, fascinating times. Gandhi always comes to mind to me. I mean, those are probably most people's go-to conversations. I would be really interested in speaking to Mozart, and hearing what his thought was, because he was very different for his times as well, and relating that today. And quite frankly, I don't know a lot about my heritage. I would love to know, you know even 2 to 3 generations back, and to sit down and to have a conversation with my own family members, as well. I think that would be highly, highly, fascinating. So those are a few that come to mind.
Awesome, awesome. And you would not be surprised that all of those have been more mentioned before, even
Sure.
Mozart. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I know. That's awesome. All right, fabulous. So, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about the work that you do and how they can work with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
I mean, I am on all social media, so if you do an Premier Rapport, you're probably going to find me. Website is probably the one-stop shop, so premierrapport.com, and then all of my socials are on there. I'm very, very, very active on LinkedIn. Very
Uh,
active on LinkedIn, both my
awesome.
personal page and my business page.
Okay, that's fabulous. Okay, so that'll be easy for people to track you down and hopefully engage. So I want to thank you so much for being a guest today. I know it's kind of short and sweet, but that's what we want to do, is to make it accessible to as many people as we can. So thank you again.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's also about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you desire.